The evening sun was setting as Andra pulled into the parking lot of Value Mart. His muscles ached from the 5-hour training session at the gym. Being a professional MMA fighter wasn't easy, but it was all he had known for the past 6 years. At 28, he was finally making a name for himself in the fighting world. "Just need to grab some chicken and veggies," he muttered to himself, grabbing a small basket instead of a cart. The cool air conditioning hit his face as he walked through the sliding doors. The store wasn't too crowded for a Thursday evening. Andra moved through the aisles quickly, picking up what he needed. His coach had been clear about his diet. He had a big fight coming up in 3 weeks, and every meal mattered. He grabbed some brown rice, a family pack of chicken breasts, and headed to the produce section for broccoli and sweet potatoes. As he made his way toward the checkout lines, he noticed something was off. There was a kind of tension in the air that he recognized all too well. Growing up in this neighborhood, he had developed a sixth sense for trouble. At checkout line 3, a woman stood with a little boy clutching her leg. She looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from more than just a long day. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she kept checking her phone while trying to calm her son. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but your card isn't working," the cashier said, not quite meeting her eyes. "That's impossible," the woman replied, her voice strained but controlled. "I just checked my balance this morning. Can you please try again?" Behind her, 2 guys in their early 20s snickered. One wore a backwards cap and had his phone out, pointing it toward the woman. "Some people need to learn to count," the taller one said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "If you can't afford it, don't shop here." The woman's shoulders tensed, but she kept her focus on the cashier. "Please just try one more time. The system must be down." Her little boy, no more than 7 years old, looked up at her with wide eyes. "Mom, are we going to get food?" he asked, his voice small but carrying in the now quiet checkout area. The 2 guys laughed harder. "Better learn early, kid. No free rides in life," the one with the phone said, nudging his friend. The woman's cheeks flushed red. The cashier looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything to the guys. Other customers stared at their shoes or suddenly became very interested in the magazine rack. Andra stood there, his basket suddenly feeling heavy in his hand. He hadn't planned to get involved in anything tonight. All he wanted was to get home, meal prep, and ice his shoulder. His coach always warned him about getting into situations outside the ring. "Save it for fight night," he would say. But something about the woman's quiet dignity and the fear in the little boy's eyes struck him. The 2 guys were getting bolder, taking video and making comments about welfare queens and taxpayer money. The woman was trying to dig through her purse now, likely looking for cash she didn't have. Her son pressed his face against her leg, trying to hide from the staring eyes and laughing voices. Andra set his basket down on the floor. 6 years of training had taught him that the most important fights weren't always in the ring. Sometimes they happened in everyday places, like checkout line 3 at Value Mart on a Thursday evening. He took a deep breath and walked forward, not yet knowing exactly what he would say or do, but knowing he couldn't walk away. Some things were worth fighting for, and the dignity of a mother trying her best was definitely one of them. Lisa hadn't planned on today being so hard. Her shift at the hospital had run 2 hours over when another nurse called in sick. Then the daycare had called, saying her son Tyler was running a low fever. By the time she picked him up and gave him some children's Tylenol, it was already past dinner time, and the fridge at home was nearly empty. Just a quick trip, she had promised Tyler, who was feeling better but still clingy. "We'll get some soup and crackers, maybe some ice cream if you're good." Now she stood at the checkout, her face burning with shame as her food assistance card kept getting declined. The system had been glitchy all month, but today of all days, it had completely failed her. "Listen, I know the money is there," Lisa said quietly to the cashier, a teenager who looked almost as uncomfortable as she felt. "Can we try one more time?" The snickering behind her grew louder. The guy with the cap had been filming for the past minute, narrating quietly to his phone. "And here we have another person who can't budget properly, expecting handouts," he was saying. His friend, a stocky guy in a red t-shirt, nodded along. Lisa tried to ignore them, but Tyler was picking up on her stress. He tugged at her jeans. "Mom, those guys are being mean," he whispered, but not quietly enough. Smart kid, the guy in the red shirt said. Maybe he can teach you some math. Lisa felt tears threatening, but she blinked them back. She had been through worse in the 2 years since Tyler's dad had walked out, much worse. But something about being humiliated in public in front of her son cut deep. Just as she was about to ask the cashier to cancel the transaction so they could leave, a deep voice spoke from behind the two guys. That's enough. The two men turned, and Lisa looked up to see a tall, broad-shouldered man standing there. She recognized him vaguely. His face had been on local sports posters around town. Mind your business, man, said the guy with the cap, though he lowered his phone slightly. The tall man, Andra, stepped forward, placing himself between the two guys and Lisa. He wasn't aggressive, just present. His calm confidence seemed to fill the space. The lady is trying to buy groceries for her kid, Andra said, his voice steady and controlled. What exactly is your problem with that? The guy in the red shirt puffed up. We're just saying people need to live within their means. We work hard for our money. Andra nodded slowly. So you work hard, and that makes you better than her. You know her story? You know how hard she works. The cashier, seeing backup had arrived, found her voice. Sir, the system is down today. It's not the customer's fault. Andra turned to Lisa with a gentleness that seemed surprising for someone his size. You okay, ma'am? Lisa nodded, still clutching her purse tightly. The card should work. I checked my balance this morning. Tyler peeked out from behind his mom, looking up at Andra with wide eyes. Something about the little boy's face, a mixture of fear and hope, made Andra even more resolved. Listen, Andra said to the cashier, can we try the card again? Sometimes these machines just need an extra minute. The guy with the cap scoffed. Oh, now you're the expert on welfare cards. You use one too. Andra turned back to him, his expression unreadable. I'm an expert on respect, something you could use a lesson in. A small crowd had gathered now, other shoppers watching the scene unfold. An older woman in line behind the two guys nodded in approval at Andra's words. The guy in the red shirt seemed to recognize something in Andra then, perhaps it was the controlled way he held himself or the disciplined calm in his eyes. Wait, aren't you that fighter? From downtown gym? He asked, his tone changing slightly. Andra didn't answer. Instead, he turned back to Lisa and Tyler. Let's figure this out. No one's leaving here hungry tonight. The guy in the red shirt took a step back, his attitude shifting. You're that fighter. Andra of the Mountain Wilson, right? I saw your match against Rodriguez last month. Andra kept his focus on Lisa and Tyler, barely acknowledging the comment. Ma'am, let's try your card one more time, he said to Lisa, his voice gentle despite his imposing presence. The cashier nodded eagerly, relieved that someone was taking charge of the situation. She swiped the card again, but the same error message appeared. I'm really sorry, the cashier said, looking genuinely apologetic now. The system is definitely down. Lisa's shoulders slumped. She'd been holding herself together by a thread, and that thread was fraying fast. Tyler sensed his mom's distress and wrapped his small arm around her leg. It's okay, Mom, he whispered. We can eat cereal. Those simple words from her 7-year-old nearly broke Lisa's composure. They'd been eating cereal for dinner too often lately. The guy with the cap seemed to have lost some of his swagger, but he wasn't backing down completely. So what now, big shot? Gonna buy her groceries to show off? Andra turned to face the two men directly for the first time. He didn't raise his voice or make any threatening moves. He didn't need to. There was something in his steady gaze that commanded attention. What I'm going to do, Andra said calmly, is ask why you feel the need to kick someone when they're already having a rough day. What does that get you? The crowd that had gathered was silent, hanging on every word. An older man with a store manager badge finally approached, drawn by the commotion. Is there a problem here? The manager asked, looking nervously between the parties. The system is down again, Mr. Chen, the cashier explained quickly. The food assistance cards aren't working. Mr. Chen sighed. Third time this month. I keep telling corporate to fix it. He glanced at Lisa's cart. Soup, bread, milk, some fruit, and a small carton of ice cream. Nothing extravagant, just a mom trying to feed her kid. The guy in the red shirt was now scrolling through his phone, his eyes widening. Dude, He nudged his friend, showing him the screen. It is him. He's 12-2, ranked 3rd in the state. His friend looked less impressed and more annoyed at losing his audience. So what? Doesn't make him right. Andra ignored them and addressed Mr. Chen. There must be a way to process her purchase. These are necessities. Mr. Chen hesitated, looking at the growing line of customers. Policy said one thing, but the situation in front of him said another. I can pay for it, Andra offered quietly. Lisa shook her head immediately. No, please, that's very kind, but I'm not looking for charity. The money is in my account. The system just isn't working. The dignity in her refusal and nods of respect from several onlookers. Mr. Chen made a decision. We have a stall policy for system failures. We can process this as a pending transaction and run the cart when the system is back up. He looked at Lisa. You're a regular customer, right? I've seen you here before. Lisa nodded, relief washing over her face. Yes, at least twice a week. Thank you so much. The guy with the cap wasn't ready to let it go. So she gets special treatment now? Because some fighter showed up? An elderly woman standing in line behind them had finally had enough. Young man, she gets treated with basic human decency, which is apparently something you need to learn about. A few people chuckled, and the two guys found themselves outnumbered in the court of public opinion. The one in the red shirt tugged at his friend's sleeve. Come on, let's go. As they turned to leave, Andra spoke up one last time. Next time you want to film someone struggling, ask yourself why. Then maybe don't. The guy with the cap muttered something under his breath but kept walking. As they passed the end of the checkout line, the one in the red shirt looked back at Andra with a mix of resentment and grudging respect. Mr. Chen helped the cashier process Lisa's groceries as a pending transaction, and the line began moving again. Tyler looked up at Andra with undisguised admiration. Are you really a fighter? He asked, his earlier fear forgotten. Andra smiled for the first time since entering the store. Yep. But today, I'm just a guy buying chicken and rice. You were really brave, Tyler said. Those guys were mean. Lisa finished gathering her bags, unsure of what to say. Thank you seemed inadequate for someone who had preserved not just her groceries but her dignity. Lisa pushed her cart toward the exit, with Tyler walking beside her and occasionally glancing back at Andra. The store had returned to its normal rhythm, but something had changed. A few shoppers nodded at her with small smiles, a quiet acknowledgement of shared humanity that hadn't been there before. Andrew grabbed his basket from where he'd set it down and quickly paid for his items. As he walked out to the parking lot, he spotted Lisa loading groceries into an old blue sedan, while Tyler held the carton of ice cream carefully with both hands. He wasn't planning to approach them again. He'd done what felt right, and that was enough. But as he passed by, Tyler called out, Hey, fighter man. Lisa looked up, startled, then slightly embarrassed. Tyler, don't bother him. Andrew smiled. It's no bother. He walked over, grocery bag in hand. Everything okay now? Lisa nodded, closing her trunk. Yes, thanks to you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in. Someone else would have. Andrew said with a shrug, though they both knew that wasn't necessarily true. Too often, people looked away. I'm Lisa, she said, extending her hand. And this is Tyler. Andrew, he replied, shaking her hand. Nice to meet you both, though I wish it had been under better circumstances. Tyler was practically bouncing with excitement. Do you punch people for real? Like on TV? Tyler. Lisa scolded, but Andrew chuckled. It's a sport, he explained to Tyler. Like basketball or football. There are rules and referees. It's not about hurting people. Tyler nodded seriously. Those guys were scared of you, but you didn't even have to punch them. Andrew crouched down to Tyler's level. That's because the most important part of being a fighter is knowing when not to fight. The training isn't so I can hurt people, it's so I have the confidence to handle tough situations without losing my cool. Lisa watched this exchange with a mixture of gratitude and something else, respect, maybe. It had been a long time since a man had shown her son this kind of positive attention. You train at downtown gym? She asked, remembering what the bullies had said. Andrew nodded. 5, sometimes 6 days a week. I have a big match coming up next month. A car drove past them, slowing slightly. It was the two guys from inside, and the driver, the one in the red shirt, stared at them as they passed. He didn't say anything, just drove on after a moment. "I think they're still mad," Tyler observed. "Some people don't like being called out," Andra said. "But maybe they'll think twice next time." Lisa checked her watch and sighed. "We should get going. Tyler needs his bath before bed, and I have an early shift tomorrow." Andra nodded and was about to say goodbye when Mr. Chen came hurrying out of the store, waving a piece of paper. "Ms. Lisa, wait." The store manager caught up to them, slightly out of breath. "I forgot to give you this." He handed her a flyer. "What's this?" Lisa asked, looking at the colorful paper. "Community Resource Fair this Saturday," Mr. Chen explained. "The downtown gym is one of the sponsors. They're offering free programs for kids, and there's information about food assistance resources too." He glanced at Andra. "Your gym does good work in the community." Andra looked pleasantly surprised. "I didn't know you were involved with that, Mr. Chen." 20 years in this neighborhood," the older man said proudly. "We look out for each other here." Lisa studied the flyer with interest. "I work most Saturdays, but maybe this time." "Mom, can we go?" "Please." Tyler begged, all thoughts of ice cream momentarily forgotten. "I want to see where the fighter trains." Lisa hesitated, clearly torn between her son's enthusiasm and her own busy schedule. "The kids' program runs from 10 to noon," Andra offered. "And there's usually pretty good food." Mr. Chen nodded eagerly. "My wife makes her famous dumplings for it every year." A small smile formed on Lisa's face, one that reached her eyes for the first time that evening. "I could maybe switch shifts with Pat." She looked at Tyler's hopeful face and then at Andra. "Would you be there?" "Leading the kids' self-defense class at 10, Andra confirmed. "Nothing too crazy, just basic movements and some discipline exercises. Builds confidence." Tyler was practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, please." The ice cream was starting to melt in the carton Tyler still clutched. Lisa took it gently from him and placed it in the front seat. "We'll think about it," she said, which made Tyler grin because kids know that "we'll think about it" often means yes. Saturday morning arrived with golden sunshine and a coolness in the air that hinted at the coming fall. Lisa had managed to switch shifts with her coworker Pat, though it meant she'd have to work a double on Sunday. Worth it, she thought, watching Tyler practically leap out of bed when she reminded him where they were going. "Do I need special clothes to learn fighting?" Tyler asked, rummaging through his dresser. "It's not fighting, honey. It's self-defense," Lisa corrected gently. "And no, your gym clothes will be fine." Downtown Community Center was a brick building that had once been a warehouse. Today, the parking lot was filled with cars and folding tables set up with colorful banners. People milled about, picking up flyers and chatting with volunteers. Tyler spotted the downtown gym banner immediately. "There it is, Mom. Come on." Lisa followed her son, feeling oddly nervous. She hadn't been to a community event like this in ages. Between work and taking care of Tyler, there was rarely time. The gym had set up a demonstration area on gym mats spread across the concrete. Several kids were already gathered, watching two teenagers demonstrate basic movements under the supervision of an older man with gray dreadlocks. "That's Coach Ray," a voice said beside Lisa. She turned to find Andra standing there in black athletic pants and a shirt with the gym's logo. He looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more approachable. "You came," Andra said, sounding pleased. "Tyler talked about nothing else for 2 days," Lisa admitted with a small laugh. Tyler was already edging toward the mat, his eyes wide with excitement. "We start in about 10 minutes, Andra told him. "You can go watch closer if you want." Tyler looked at his mom for permission, then darted off when she nodded. "He's got a lot of energy," Andra observed. "You have no idea," Lisa sighed. "Thank you again for what you did at the store. It meant a lot." Andra shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Lisa pointed out. "You did." Before Andra could respond, Coach Ray called over to him. "Wilson, bring those extra gloves over here." "Judy calls," Andra said with a smile. "Feel free to check out the other booths. The food bank table has really good information, and Mr. Chen wasn't lying about his wife's dumplings." As Andra jogged over to help Coach Ray, Lisa wandered through the fair. she stopped at the food bank table, where a friendly woman explained their new delivery program for families with transportation issues. Lisa took a pamphlet, thinking of her elderly neighbor who could use this service. From across the community center, she could see Tyler sitting cross-legged on the mat with about 15 other kids. Andrew stood in front of them, demonstrating something that had all the children giggling and copying his movements. "That young man has a way with kids," said a woman beside her, following Lisa's gaze. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes. "I'm Diane, by the way. I run the after-school program here." "Lisa," she replied, shaking Diane's offered hand. "That's my son Tyler over there." "In the blue shirt? He's adorable," Diane said. "Are you new to our programs?" "Very new," Lisa admitted. "We haven't really been involved in community stuff. Work keeps me pretty busy." Diane nodded understandingly. "Single parent." "Is it that obvious?" Lisa asked with a tired smile. "Recognizing my own journey," Diane replied. "Raised 2 boys on my own. It's not easy." As they chatted, Lisa found herself relaxing. There was something comforting about talking to someone who had walked a similar path and come out the other side. On the mat, Andrew had the children paired up, practicing gentle blocking movements. He moved among them, adjusting positions and offering encouragement. When he reached Tyler, he spent extra time showing him the correct stance, and Lisa could see her son beaming with pride. "Andrew volunteers here 3 times a week," Diane mentioned. "Started coming as a troubled teenager and never left. Now he helps run the youth program when he's not training." Lisa raised her eyebrows in surprise. "I didn't know that." "Oh yes," Diane continued. "He doesn't talk about it much, but he's helped dozens of kids find direction, especially boys who don't have father figures at home." Lisa watched as Andrew high-fived Tyler after a particularly good practice move. Something warm unfurled in her chest. Gratitude, yes, but also a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in a long time. The class ended with all the kids sitting in a circle. Andrew said something that made them put their hands together in the center, then lift them with a cheer. Tyler ran back to Lisa, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom, did you see? I learned how to block if someone tries to push me, and we did these cool breathing exercises that fighters use." "I saw," Lisa said, smoothing his wild hair. "Did you have fun?" "It was awesome," Tyler declared. Andrew said, "I have good balance." Speaking of Andrew, he was making his way through the crowd toward them, stopping occasionally to chat with people. Many seemed to know him, reaching out to shake his hand or pat his shoulder. "Your stun's a natural," Andrew said when he reached them. "Quick learner." Tyler puffed up with pride. "Can I come back next week?" "Please, Mom." Lisa hesitated. "I don't know, The Saturday class is free for kids," Andrew explained. "Part of our community outreach. And there's a parents group that meets at the same time. Some of them organize carpools." Diane, who had been quietly listening, added, "The parents group saved my sanity when my boys were young. Nothing fancy, just coffee and conversation with people who get it." 3 weeks had passed since the community fair. Tyler now attended the Saturday morning kids class regularly, and Lisa had surprised herself by actually enjoying the parents group that met at the same time. There was something freeing about being around other adults who understood the daily juggling act of single parenthood. Today was different, though. Today was Andrew's big fight. Are we really going to see him fight for real? Tyler asked for the 10th time as they walked toward the arena. He was wearing a homemade Team Andrew shirt that he'd insisted on creating with markers and an old white t-shirt. "Yes, but remember what we talked about," Lisa reminded him. "It's a sport with rules. No one is trying to really hurt anyone." The local sports center wasn't huge, but tonight it was packed. Coach Ray had given them tickets, good ones, near the front, saying that Andrew had specifically asked for them to be there. "I don't know anything about MMA fighting," Lisa admitted to Diane, who had joined them for the event. "Neither do I," the older woman confessed with a laugh. "I just cheer when everyone else does." They found their seats just as the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, introducing the fighters. When Andrew's name was called, the crowd erupted. He was clearly a local favorite. Andrew strode into the arena looking focused and calm. He scanned the crowd briefly, and Tyler nearly jumped out of his seat when Andrew spotted them and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. He saw us, Tyler exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. The match began, and Lisa found herself holding her breath more often than not. Andra moved with a controlled precision that spoke of years of discipline and training. His opponent was good too, a fighter from out of state with an impressive record. During a brief break between rounds, Tyler tugged at Lisa's sleeve. "Mom, look." He pointed across the arena where, a few rows up, sat the two guys from the grocery store. The one in the red shirt was watching intently, while his friend seemed more interested in his phone. "Just ignore them," Lisa said, feeling a flicker of the old anxiety returning. The fight continued, each round more intense than the last. By the final round, both fighters were showing signs of fatigue, but Andra maintained his composure. When the bell rang and the judges announced his victory, the arena erupted in cheers. Tyler was on his feet instantly, whooping and clapping. Even Lisa found herself cheering loudly, caught up in the moment. After the official ceremonies, they waited in the lobby area where Coach Ray had told them Andra would meet them. When he finally appeared, he had a small bruise under one eye but was smiling broadly. "You came," he said, echoing his words from the community fair. "Tyler wouldn't have missed it for anything," Lisa replied. "Congratulations on your win." "That was amazing," Tyler gushed, practically vibrating with excitement. "Especially when you did that spinning kick thing." Andor laughed, crouching down to Tyler's level, despite what must have been tired muscles. "Thanks, little man. Did you learn something watching?" Tyler nodded solemnly. "You stayed calm even when that other guy hit you really hard. You didn't get mad or scared." "That's the most important part," Andor agreed. "Controlling your emotions in tough situations." A small crowd had gathered around them, fans wanting to congratulate Andra. Among them, Lisa spotted the guy in the red shirt from the grocery store. He was hovering at the edge of the group, seeming unsure of himself. Eventually, he stepped forward. "Could fight," he said to Andra, his voice gruff but sincere. "That last round was impressive." Andra studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thanks." An awkward silence followed before the young man spoke again. "Listen, about that day at the store." He glanced at Lisa and Tyler, then back to Andra. "I was being a jerk." The simple admission hung in the air. Andra didn't immediately respond, and Lisa found herself holding her breath. "What's your name?" Andra finally asked. "Kevin," the young man replied, seeming surprised by the question. "You train anywhere, Kevin?" Kevin shook his head. "Nah, just watch a lot of fights." Andra reached into his gym bag and pulled out a card. "Downtown gym. Monday night, 7 o'clock. We have an open class for beginners. First month's free." Kevin took the card, looking confused. "Why would you want me there after how I acted?" "Because good fighting isn't about being tough or intimidating people," Andra said. "It's about discipline, respect, and community. Sounds like things you might be interested in learning." Kevin stared at the card for a long moment before tucking it in his pocket. "Maybe I'll check it out." He nodded awkwardly at Lisa and Tyler before disappearing back into the crowd. Coach Ray, who had witnessed the exchange, clapped Andra on the shoulder. "Always recruiting, aren't you?" "Everyone deserves a second chance," Andra said simply. "That's what you taught me." Later, as they walked toward the parking lot, Tyler skipped ahead while Lisa and Andra followed at a slower pace. "You really think that guy will show up at the gym?" Lisa asked. Andra shrugged. "Maybe. People can surprise you. 5 years ago, I wasn't so different from him." "Somehow I doubt that," Lisa said with a smile. "It's true," Andra insisted. "I had a lot of anger, thought I had all the answers. Coach Ray showed me a better way to use that energy." He looked at Tyler, who was pretending to practice fighting moves in front of them. "Now I get to do the same for kids like Tyler." 6 months had passed since that night at Value Mart. The winter chill had given way to spring warmth, and life had settled into new patterns for everyone involved. Lisa stood at the edge of the downtown gym, watching Tyler in his now familiar white training uniform. He was helping a smaller boy learn a defensive stance, his face serious with concentration as he gently adjusted the younger child's arm position. "He's becoming quite the teacher," Andra said, coming to stand beside her. He just finished leading the advanced class and had a towel draped around his neck. "Takes after his coach," Lisa replied with a smile. The awkwardness that had once existed between them had long since faded, replaced by an easy friendship built on shared Saturday mornings and occasional dinners after practice. Tyler had flourished in these past months. His grades had improved, and the principal had called Lisa last week to say how impressed she was with his newfound confidence and leadership skills. The spring showcase is coming up next month, Andrew mentioned. Coach Ray thinks Tyler should demonstrate the intermediate form. He's mastered it faster than any kid his age. Pride swelled in Lisa's chest. He practices every night in the living room. I've had to move the coffee table permanently. They shared a laugh, watching as Tyler high-fived his young student. Across the gym, Kevin was working with a group of teenagers on grappling techniques. True to no one's expectations except perhaps Andrew's, he had shown up that Monday after the fight and had kept coming back. Now he was a regular volunteer, particularly good with the more troubled teens who reminded him of his younger self. "Your friend's doing well," Lisa observed, nodding toward Kevin. "He found his place," Andrew said simply. "Sometimes that's all people need." The front door of the gym opened, and Mr. Chen entered carrying 2 large bags that smelled deliciously of his wife's cooking. Saturday practice had become something of a community event, with parents bringing snacks and Mr. Chen often appearing with food that needed to be eaten before it spoiled, though everyone knew it was freshly made. "I brought pork buns," the store owner announced, "and vegetable dumplings for Miss Diane." As if summoned by the mention of her name, Diane appeared from the small office where she now ran the gym's new outreach program. What had started as casual conversations during the parents' group had turned into a formal position when the gym received a community grant. "Perfect timing," Diane said, helping Mr. Chen set up the food on a folding table. The parents' meeting just wrapped up. The parents' group had grown too, expanding beyond just single parents to include families facing all sorts of challenges. Last month, they'd organized a childcare swap system that had been a lifesaver for many, including Lisa when she needed to pick up extra shifts at the hospital. "How's the planning coming for the food security program?" Andrew asked Diane. "We've got 10 local businesses signed up to donate," Diane reported proudly. "And Value Mart is matching all donations for the first month." The idea had grown from Lisa's experience with the food assistance card malfunction. Andrew had approached the store's corporate office, leveraging his local celebrity status to advocate for better systems and backup plans for when technology failed. What had started as a simple request had blossomed into a community-wide initiative. "Mom, did you see?" Tyler called, running over. "I taught Joey how to do the blocking move." "I saw," Lisa assured him, ruffling his hair. "You're a great teacher." Tyler beamed, then turned to Andrew. "Can I show Joey the trophy from your big fight?" "I told him about it." Andrew nodded. "It's in the case in Coach Ray's office. Just ask him first." As Tyler dashed off, Lisa shook her head with a smile. "That trophy is like a sacred relic to him." "Kids need heroes," Andrew said, watching Tyler go. "I'm just glad I can be a positive one." Lisa hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Not just for him." Andrew turned to look at her, a question in his eyes. "That night at the store," Lisa continued, "you didn't just help me with groceries. You showed me that there are still good people willing to stand up for others. That changed things for me." Before Andrew could respond, a commotion at the front desk caught their attention. A woman was standing there, looking overwhelmed and a bit lost. She had a young daughter half hiding behind her legs and the familiar look of someone who had reached the end of their rope. "New member," the front desk volunteer explained to Andrew as he approached. "Says she heard about the program from a friend at the hospital." Lisa recognized the woman from the pediatric ward where she worked. Nancy, a single mom whose husband had left last year, leaving her with massive debt and a daughter with special needs. "I'll take care of this," Lisa told Andrew, already moving toward the front desk. 6 months ago, she'd been the one standing there, uncertain and alone. Now she could be the one extending a hand. "Nancy, I'm Lisa from the hospital. Welcome to downtown gym." Nancy's relief was visible. "Lisa, they said you might be here. I wasn't sure about coming, but you needed somewhere to start," Lisa finished for her. "I get it. Come on, let me introduce you to everyone." As Lisa led Nancy and her daughter toward the parents' group meeting area, she caught Andrew's eye across the gym. He gave her a small nod that said more than words could. What had begun with a simple act of courage in a grocery store checkout line had rippled outward, touching dozens of lives in ways no one could have predicted. One person standing up, then another, until standing together became the most natural thing in the world. Tyler ran back into the main gym area, carefully carrying Andrew's championship trophy to show his new friend. The light caught the metal, sending little sparkles dancing across the walls of the gym that had become, for so many, a second home.